grim prediction tonight as the war in Gaza rages on. A top military spokesman believes no end is in sight as a new phase of that conflict now takes shape.
Here at home, a museum is sparking plenty of attention since the Israel-Hamas war started. And the founder of the Palestine Museum US in Woodbridge is now speaking out with a view of the war he believes Americans don't want to hear. News 8's Sarah Cody visited the museum recently, and she joins us with the story tonight. Sarah.
Well, Lisa and Darren, we went to the Palestine Museum US in Woodbridge with the intent to show you one of the only museums of its kind in the country. While there, the founder made some extremely controversial comments about the Hamas attacks of October 7th, which do not reflect the views of News 8. But we believe that his personal story of his family losing their home and his concern for the deaths of innocent Palestinians should be shared. So here we give room to hear from all sides of this sad, complicated conflict.
There's sculpture, there's some ceramics. There are two big pottery pots. They're huge old ones.
The Palestine Museum US right here in Woodbridge is one of a kind. Faisal Saleh says the 6,000 square foot space filled with art, traditional dress, and books is here to share history and open eyes.
There's a culture, there's a history, there's a whole people that Americans in general are not familiar with.
Saleh founded the museum and funds it. Recently retired from a successful career in business, Saleh now dedicates his time to the museum, where talk is usually non-political. That is, until early October, when 1,200 Israelis were brutally murdered by Hamas and 240 people were taken hostage.
What began on October 7th was not the beginning of the story. It was just a continuation of something that's been happening at different levels and at different intensities since 1948.
He's referring to the year when 800,000 Palestinians fled or were forced from their homes at the start of the Israeli-Arab War. The United Nations had formed a plan to split the region into two independent states, but the Palestinians opposed this plan, and violence ensued. Saleh's parents, who had 10 children at the time, were forced to leave their home.
In 1948, the Palestinians' land was stolen. The people, their homeland were stolen. They were kicked out of their homelands. And until that's addressed, there's not going to be any peace.
In 2006, Hamas won an election to control Palestinian land. The militant group is now viewed as terrorists. Saleh says he doesn't necessarily support Hamas, but his words are strong.
It's being called a war with Israel and terror, not so much Israel and Palestine. Do you disagree with that?
I definitely disagree with that. So let's talk about terror. Israel practices terrorism a lot, just as much as Hamas, and probably a lot more.
October 7th was a murderous terrorist rampage by a bunch of international criminals.
University of New Haven professor Robert Sanders has worked in international law and human rights for 2 decades. He believes Saleh speaks from personal pain and that he's not alone in his beliefs. But he is strong in condemning Hamas, which aims to eradicate Jewish culture.
Hamas is a terrorist organization that is in charge and over a people who years ago chose them in a different context to be their leaders, and then had no ability to remove that choice at the barrel of a gun.
Sanders points out the difference between the terrorists and the majority of Palestinians.
The average Palestinian, my perspective from personal experience and from research, does not want to be at war with the state of Israel. It doesn't want to be at war with individual Israeli Jewish civilians. They'd rather just live their lives.
Right now, Israel has to go in and remove Hamas and remove the terrorists and get the hostages back.
Gail Schlossberg is the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater New Haven. Every morning, this former state senator receives a text detailing anti-Semitic activity in the area.
It's unbelievable, except I will tell you, we've seen it before. The Jewish community walks around and says, we've seen this before. We know what this looks like.
There has been Islamophobia too, and heightened awareness of the deaths of innocent Palestinians. According to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, more than 24,000 Palestinians have perished, including many children.
What is going on in Gaza right now is a genocide. It's a genocide by all definitions that exist.
I now look at Israel and its response, trying to get at Hamas. Legitimate target, Hamas. Are the means to which they are doing so proportionate and distinct? I don't know the answer to that because I don't know the intelligence, but I know it makes me question it.
Make no mistake about it. This is war, and it's horrible, and it's horrible. But Israel didn't ask for this. Any loss of civilian life is a horrible thing, and it's heartbreaking.
Saleh doesn't agree with harming civilians either. And as for the museum, Schlossberg has little to say about its existence here in our state.
Yeah, in all honesty, Sarah, I really don't have a reaction. It's not for me to comment on, what other people are doing.
And as the world has seen some movement with a ceasefire and the release of some hostages, Saleh remains committed to sharing his message and giving local Palestinians a place to call home.
They spend a lot of time going to other people's museums for years. Now this is something available where they can walk into their own place, and that's a very good feeling.
The museum does not sport a sign outside, and it is open by appointment only. I'm Sarah Cody, News 8.